Hi, as I said, I'm Charlie Limley. I'm on the board of DC Refers. I have so many things on my screen. I can't tell you all the board members who are here, but I know Nancy Lopez, you all know, who sort of started things off as a member of our board, a longtime member and previous chair of the board. And Andrea Furster, who's a founder of the organization and the current board chair, is here. And I'm sure some others are here, but I just can't see all the names right now. So let me just tell a little bit about DC Refers for those of you who don't know. You all know about the problem that we have with many people who have legal problems, very serious legal problems. They require them to go into court often, but they go in without lawyers because they can't afford lawyers. And you can earn a fair amount of money in this country without really being able to afford to pay the full rate that most lawyers charge, the $400, $500, $600 an hour to deal with a legal problem. And so we're dealing with what we call the justice gap. It's the people who make too little money to be able to plausibly afford to hire lawyers to help them with their legal problems, but they make too much money to qualify for federally funded legal aid. So that's really generally between 200 and 400% of the federal poverty guidelines. And what we do is we have a directory of lawyers and mediators who have agreed to represent people in that category, people of limited means between 200 and 400% of the federal poverty line at reduced rates of between $75 and $150 per hour, or a flat fee equivalent of that rate. And these are lawyers and mediators who want to do good while doing well. It helps people, build up their own practices while allowing them to do a form of public service that they might not be able to afford to do while charging absolutely nothing for their services. And DC Refers is also a good trusted source of referrals for all sorts of clients. People come to our website to look for lawyers, and one of the first things they do is find out if they qualify for reduced fee rates. And even if they don't, they find a selection of lawyers who can help them with their legal problems. So there are a number of different ways that clients find us. The court resource centers to an increasing degree are helping us with that. And we'll hear a little bit more about that today, I'm sure. Other legal services providers know that when someone comes in who makes a little bit too much money to qualify for free legal aid, that send them to DC Refers, other community organizations and schools, a lot of social media presence, online searches, and most important of all, referrals. And we hope, if nothing else, and when you leave here, you'll remember DC Refers directory when you need to recommend someone for an attorney. This is what our website looks like. If somebody goes to our website to look for a lawyer, it's a very well done website. We have, I think, some of the best IT people in the legal aid world. And so at this page, people can go to find a lawyer, and it'll allow them to put in enough information to find out if they qualify for reduced fee rates, or they don't have to, but they can. Regardless, they move on to answer some questions about their legal problem. They can choose sort of a broad area of law, and then to the extent they're able to narrow it down, they can choose subspecialties of law to whatever extent they're able to do that. And it gives them the most tailored list of lawyers possible from our database, people who can serve their needs. And they can choose from those people who they'd like to start a conversation with. We have, I think it was 26 now lawyers on our panel, I believe it is. A lot of the names are on here, a lot of well-respected practitioners in the community, people who are really dedicated to serving their clients and do a great job. All these people have gone through our vetting process. There's a $50 application fee, and then they provide information about themselves, evidence of malpractice insurance, and some client and non-client resources, references, that we do look into. And if they're accepted onto the panel, they become panel members. And many of these people have been on the panel for several years. It's the kind of thing that once people do it, they tend to stick around. So here are just some numbers. So far in 2023, we've had 328 requests for legal assistance. 95 of those resulted in brief advice or consultations. 12 resulted in retained engagements. That's just so far in 2023. If you look at over the years, it's been over 3,000 requests for legal assistance. Over 1,300 people actually got some sort of legal advice or consultations. These are people who have had absolutely zero legal advice or legal assistance from a lawyer who got legal assistance from a lawyer, and many times this was all they needed. And 331 of those ended up with full-blown retained engagements. So these are important numbers, and I think they're numbers that we're all very proud of, because, as I said, these are people who would have had no help from a lawyer, and they got, in most cases, the help that they really needed. Here are some of the practice areas that pretty much any practice area you can imagine somebody needing a lawyer. We have people in most areas. Obviously, get a lot of cases in family law, estate law, elder law, those sorts of things. So we can always use more lawyers in those categories. And really, that's what's next is we need more lawyers and more clients, just like everyone else. And we're hoping that people here will consider this form of public service and in a way that allows you to perform a very important public service while not completely abandoning the need to make some sort of income, or if any mediators who want to provide mediation services to folks, we would love to hear from those folks as well. And if nothing else, if you would think about us, think about our database when you need to refer someone for a lawyer in the future. Various ways you can connect with us. If you join our mailing list on our website, dcrefers.org, or follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Facebook, I don't know if anybody uses that anymore, but we're there if you're interested. And there's always these DC Refers Reconnect programs. And these are, Nancy Lopez has been the engine behind these things. And it's just been such a wonderful series of programs. I've had great speakers and a lot of great conversations have started here. And this is going to be another one of those. So I'm going to introduce you to our speakers tonight, although I think both of them might very well fall into the category of someone who needs no introduction, especially in an audience of people who are concerned with access to justice in the DC community. So DC Refers, look us up, contact us if you have any questions, or if you'd like to join our panel, or just want to learn more about the organization. And don't forget us when you do need to refer someone for a lawyer, whether they need reduced rates or not. Okay, and now our guests tonight are, I know I'm all excited about what you're going to hear, and I know you're going to be excited as well. We have Judge Carmen McLean, who's Associate Judge on the Superior Court of the District of Columbia. She was nominated by both President Obama and President Trump before being confirmed by the Senate back in 2017, I believe it was. 2019, she was confirmed by the Senate. She's currently the Deputy Presiding Judge of the Probate and Tax Divisions, but more to the point for what we're talking about here tonight, she co-chairs the Superior Court's Committee on Pro Bono and Affordable Counsel, and on the Rules Committee and the Access, and on the DC Access to Justice Commission. So she's done a lot of very important things for the access to justice community in DC. She got her JD degree from Georgetown University Law Center, like many great lawyers on this call did. She then worked at Jones Day, started as an associate, worked her way up to partner, had a very successful career as a corporate litigator and trial lawyer, and was named a National Law Journal DC Rising Star in that capacity. And she was also the partner in charge of the DC Office Pro Bono Committee, Pro Bono and Public Service Committee, and on the Diversity Committee co-chair there. She's always been very active in pro bono work, and she was the National Law Journal named her a champion of the legal profession, and she was the DC Bar Pro Bono Attorney of the Year back when she was still practicing law. So, Judge, welcome. And Jodi Feldman, who's the new Pro Bono Manager of the District of Columbia Courts. She just started that position in March of 2023. This is May of 2023, I think. So she's still getting picking out the blinds and so forth. And she's going to be leading the court's efforts to provide legal assistance to litigants who can't afford representation by encouraging people to or at least elevating the importance of pro bono work and providing low-cost legal services by lawyers and coordinating the efforts of the legal services provider community. So it'd be a very important role, and they have a lot of exciting things planned. Before taking that job, Jodi Feldman was the managing attorney for legal operations at Legal Aid DC, and she was honored by the Washington Council of Lawyers several years ago with its inaugural Legal Services Award, to recognize all of her accomplishments that she'd done on behalf of access to justice for people living in poverty in the DC community. Prior to Legal Aid, she was a staff attorney and pro bono coordinator for Whitman Walker Health. And she came to know about Whitman Walker Health while she was working at Wiley Ryan LLP, where she did a lot of pro bono work, including for Whitman Walker, and she was named Whitman Walker's Outstanding Volunteer Attorney of the Year back in 2001. She also graduated from the Georgetown University Law Center, and with that, I will stop talking about Georgetown University Law Center graduates and turn the stage over to them. Welcome, folks.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to be here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you all on behalf of the court and in support of DC Refers. So the current chief of the Superior Court, Anita Josie Herring, created the DC Superior Court's Pro Bono Affordable Counsel Committee in 2000. There previously was not a court committee on this topic. And the committee was comprised of a number of judges, as well as a representative from legal services organizations. It happened to be Jodi Feldman at that time, and also Paul Lee as a representative from firms who are active in pro bono. What we first set out to do was determine the needs at the court and how we as a court committee could best meet them. And what we learned is the tremendous legal services organizations in the district knew exactly the needs of the litigants and the needs of the court, and were working to meet them. But there was simply a gap as a result of limited funds for staffing and the need for more pro bono lawyers. And so what the court decided to emphasize and dedicate its efforts to is making these facts known, making it known that there are a myriad of legal services organizations in the district, both pro bono and affordable counsel, like DC Refers, who are working every day to meet the needs of low-income residents in the districts and can provide support and resources and opportunities for those who want to help. And also that we can convey how important this is, not just for the litigants, but for the court in reaching its decisions. And I do have an anecdote on that I will share a little later during the presentation, but focused on the committee for now. So we have now had 2 very successful open houses to make sure that folks understand that they are welcome at the court, and help folks get to know where they need to be in different areas of law where there are need. And we are planning more events in the future, and we really aim to make ourselves available to support the work of legal services organizations in whatever way possible. So the pandemic, it really showed how difficult it is for folks who can't afford lawyers to get access to the courts in a way that is ideal for them, for anybody. And so it showed their unmet needs of those who lacked representation, and finding out what was even a legal need, who could they talk to get help, how do they file, and where do they file at the court. So these needs all became very glaring as the legal services organizations and the court worked to address them. And so as a result, now that we're past the pandemic, we have made at the court many, many advancements that now we are not throwing away, but we are using to make the court more accessible to those of limited income. And the court refers to this as this and many other efforts as the reimagining of the court. And so this comes in many different ways. For example, there were certain areas of the court where you had to file in person, and now e-filing is available. Most of the hearings that are conducted at the court can now be conducted remotely or in a hybrid capacity. This is not all, because there are some times when it is important to be in person, but this is many to most. So that doesn't mean that I'm generally hybrid. Myself and the other judges are on the bench and ready for anybody who comes into court, but other folks can be hybrid. And what we found is this increases access to justice not only because it makes it easier for, say, DC refers lawyers to offer their rates at a lower amount because you don't have to spend the time traveling to and from the court. You're not waiting in cattle calls as often as you used to be, but it also increases access to the justice because the litigants don't need to take as much time off of their jobs. Prior to the pandemic, I would see litigants who had to take an entire day off to sit in the courtroom for what was a 10-minute hearing. And oftentimes those resources are essential to their daily lives. And so we as a court are keeping all of those modifications that are helpful to access to justice in place as much as we possibly can. In addition, during the pandemic, the court set up remote sites where if folks didn't have the technology that they needed to attend a hearing by video, they could go there to do so. Those will remain open, as will all of the modifications that were designed to allow remote practice, like electronic filing or submission of exhibits through email or box.com. And the next step that we're taking to go even farther is revamping the court's website so that we will have updated information both for litigants who may be self-represented or in need of lower income representation, and then also for pro bono attorneys and organizations to allow it easier for folks in need to connect. And so I will look forward to speaking with you again a little bit later in the presentation, but right now I will turn it over to Jodi Feldman, who I have had the pleasure of working with for several years now.
Thank you, Judge McLean. As Judge McLean mentioned, I was been fortunate to be appointed to the Superior Court Committee on Pro Bono and Affordable Counsel about 2 years ago. And I think maybe, so I was fortunate to be appointed, and I really, really enjoyed working with the committee. And it was through the committee that I learned a variety of different things, one of which is that one of the court's strategic goals the court does 5-year plans, and the 5-year plan ending in 2022, as well as the new 5-year plan starting in 2023. One of the primary strategic goals is access to justice. And the courts do a variety of efforts related to access to justice. Everything from language access to all the reforms that Judge McLean was mentioning that make it easier for folks to access the court, to utilize the court, revamping the website, considering disability and literacy and other limitations that make it more challenging for folks to access the courts, and how the courts can address those things. So one of the pieces is just the lack of access to meaningful representation, that can make access to justice real for someone who is coming to the courts and participating in the judicial process. As one of my heroes, Jim Sandman, likes to say, the court system was designed for lawyers, and it is very, very difficult for non-lawyers to navigate the court system, even though we try, many, many ways to make it a little bit easier. So through my work on the committee, I learned about the court's plan to create a new position as a pro bono manager. And as I think Charlie laid out very well, the purpose of the position was to help increase the availability of pro bono and reduced fee representation, and to coordinate and integrate pro bono services throughout the courts. And I was very excited to be selected as the first pro bono manager at the courts. I started about 7 weeks ago, so I am definitely still learning my way around. But I'll talk a little bit about what I have been doing. But I want to mention one of the really exciting pieces about taking this position that I learned through the application process, and since I've been at the courts, is that this is not going to start and end with my position. The court is actually, working on creating an entire access to justice unit, and plans on hiring a director of access to justice, The court already has navigators, folks who are available to greet folks who come to the courthouse, but it's also available remotely by phone, just to help direct folks to where they need to go, to where they can find forms they need to fill out, and also refer folks to legal services organizations if need be, or other social service organizations. Right now, there are 2 court navigators who are working primarily on eviction diversion and working with folks in the landlord-tenant court, and to a lesser extent in the small claims division, but there are plans to expand the navigator program and to the courts as a whole, and that program will also be part of the Access to Justice unit. And even more ambitious are the court's plans to build a Justice Resource Center, which the court recognizes, as I know all of you do, that what brings people to court, there's often an underlying issue, whether it is lack of access to financial resources, to employment, to food, to healthcare, and such. And so the point of the Justice Access Center would be to be a place where folks can access all kinds of services. There would be representatives from city agencies, representative from legal services organizations, representatives from social services organizations, with an eye toward trying to better connect folks in one place to the variety of services they may need to help prevent them from having to come to the court or being involved in legal matters. And most importantly, for folks who are involved in a legal matter, to try to resolve that matter and get the help that they need and connected with the resources they need, so that they are not a return person to the courts and someone who continues to return to the courts to have to get their issues resolved because they haven't gotten the underlying help that they need. So that is also very exciting. That is a big project. So please don't expect the doors to open soon to the Justice Resource Center, but it is definitely underway. So very exciting happenings from my perspective, and I think you all will agree. For me in particular, as I mentioned, I've only been here 7 weeks, so still trying to get settled a little bit. And I will say I worked at Legal Aid for 18 years, and I had a lot of access to the courts from the external, but there's just so much more going on now that I'm here internally. So there's still a lot to learn. And so I would say right now I have sort of 3 primary areas of focus. I'm trying to identify areas at the courts that would benefit from more volunteer help on site and try to fill those gaps as best I can, try to help. 2 examples would be, one would be the Family Court Self-Help Center. And I think in some of the materials that Nancy's going to share with you, it includes information about an upcoming training on June 15th, where we are hoping to train some new folks to staff the Family Court Self-Help Center. We also, the Probate Self-Help Center that the court runs is another area. Probate Resource Center is another area that I'm going to be trying to work on bringing more folks to the court. My second sort of focus for right now is exactly what we're doing here, which is amplifying and raising awareness more broadly for the need for more pro bono and affordable representation throughout the legal community. And really talk about all the many ways that folks can get involved. It is not just, taking a pro bono case. As I've mentioned, there are volunteer opportunities on site. There are ways that other folks can just help spread the message. So we are trying to go to, myself and our members of our committee are going to as many events as we can to talk about the need for more folks to be available to provide pro bono and affordable counsel. As Judge McLean mentioned, we've had 2 open houses at Superior Court, and we're having a 3rd on June 20th, which Nancy also has some information to share if any of you are interested in joining the open house or encouraging others to come. And the ideas of the open house are really just to bring folks to the court to see how operations are happening right now in hybrid operations, and really welcoming people back to the court coming out of the pandemic. And the courts were open for business entirely during the pandemic, but I know many folks who provide legal services and pro bono services were not physically coming to the court. So this is an opportunity to physically come to the courts and see how operations are currently going, and to meet with some judges from our committee. So that is something that we're really excited about, and the court tours have been well attended. My third focus that I'm focusing on right now as I sort of start the position is really just being an open line of communication. I really see myself as a bridge between the courts and the legal services community and the pro bono community. I am fortunate to have a lot of contacts and strong relationships in all of those communities. And I really want to open the lines of communication and be able to both share information about what's going on in the courts with the community, but also hear from the community about ways that we can make it easier here at the courts for folks to do pro bono work and volunteer work and provide affordable counsel. Sharing information is definitely part of it. One of the things I've been doing is working with the navigators that I mentioned to make sure that they are fully connected to the legal services community and aware of all of the resources that are available, so that they can properly connect litigants to places where they can get help. With all that, there's a lot on my plate. It's very exciting and I'm really enjoying myself, but it is not a one-person job by any means. So we really need help from all of you who are interested in making sure that we all are doing our part to expand access to justice for folks of low and modest means. And with that, I'm going to pass it off back to Judge McLean.
Absolutely. So we would love your feedback, your input, your suggestions, your questions. And so if there's a couple ways you can provide those. One, we're going to put in the chat right now Jodi's email address and my email address. You're welcome to reach out to us at any time down the road if you have questions or suggestions, please. But also, please right now feel free to put any questions or suggestions in the chat. It could be your suggestions for how we recruit more folks to volunteer for DC refers in various areas of expertise. It could be how can the court better support your modest means clients or practitioners who are helping modest means clients, or any other of those sorts of ideas. And while you are taking down our email addresses and or putting in questions or suggestions, I will take this opportunity to share a little bit about the difference it makes in the lives of individuals and in court decision making. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about a case that I saw for about 3 years during my time on the domestic relations calendar. So this was a custody case, and it was brought by a grandmother who wanted to have custody of her 2 grandchildren. Her grandchildren had been living with her for about 8 years with the permission of her daughter, their mother. And then their mother decided that she wanted them back. So the mother filed a motion to modify. It was assigned to me, and that's how I first saw them. The grandmother didn't have any representation, but the mother did have a lawyer. It was a pro bono lawyer. She presented very well, and while the grandmother had been providing care for the kids for such a long time and raised allegations regarding the mother's mental health, she didn't have a lawyer. She didn't know how to get the evidence get the information into evidence other than through her testimony. And she didn't know the specifics of her daughter's mental health diagnosis. So I take very seriously the need to try and make sure that the playing field is level for those that are represented and unrepresented. In fact, I train all new judges on that topic and the judicial code of conduct related to that issue. But nonetheless, I gave custody to the mother of the two children. They were about 9 and 11 at the time. Because I followed the legal standard and the evidence that was presented to me, and that seemed to me to be the clear decision. 6 months later, the children were removed by Child and Family Services, and the grandmother was back in court with another motion to modify. She then was able to find pro bono counsel, and then was able to, it was a referral that was taken on by some associates at a major law firm who had no experience in that subject matter area previously. They did a phenomenal job of gathering evidence related to the mother's mental health. The mother, her mental health proceeded to spiral downward. She actually even assaulted a security guard at the court and was put in jail for a period of time. It took some time, but we had a second trial. I oversaw a second trial related to the same two children, and gave the grandmother custody, permanent custody. So the difference was, in the first instance, she had custody with the permission of the mother. And so that's a different legal standard. After the second trial, I gave her custody over the objection of the mother. And so the children were only in the mother's custody for about 9 months, because as soon as I had found out more information, I put them back in the temporary custody of the grandmother. But it's just such a stark example of the different decisions that can be made when lawyers are present to be able to get the discovery that's necessary, subpoenas to providers, admission of evidence, so that I can understand what's happening in a given case and make the best decision. Because I only knew in hindsight that the first decision I made was not what was best for the children. So I'm very thankful for the pro bono lawyers that took on that case. But I would think that actually that particular grandmother might have been able to get a limited means representation, because I know she would do anything she could to fight for those grandchildren. So let's see, do we have any questions that Jodi or I can respond to? Let's see. So what would be your wish for how the court could better support modest means litigators and clients? Put your questions or ideas in the chat. So Nancy posed that fabulous question, and I don't see anybody took her up on it yet. Well, we hope you'll take us up on our invitation to email Jodi or I. Our email addresses are right there. It's Judge McLean Chambers at dcsc.gov and Jodi.Feldman at dcssystem.gov.
DCC system.
Oh, DCC system. Oh, I see. Because you're, yeah. Okay.
And I will just add that I talking about this. And again, I know I'm talking to folks who know this, but you can't imagine what a difference it can make just to say something to one person. You know, as I said, I've been here just a few short weeks, and you know, I had a situation where I met one of the judges sitting on the criminal bench, and I explained to him what I was doing here at the courts. And the next night he had a social engagement and was speaking with a partner at a major law firm. And then next day I was connected to him, and you know, I'm already working with that law firm on getting them involved in doing criminal defense pro bono work, which is what they're interested in trial level and appellate. And so it can just make such a difference, even if you're just, you know, socially, through your social networks, through your professional networks, just spreading the word and sharing information about DC refers, about the need for folks to do more pro bono work. If people don't know where to start, they can contact me. and they can contact any of the legal services organizations. And they're, as Judge McLean said, we're also working. I'm working with one of our colleagues here at the courts who is on the call today, Claire Huber, to update our courts website so that it's easier for folks who want to do pro bono work to figure out where to go and how to connect with organizations and stuff. So just wherever you go, please talk about these issues that are so important to all of us, because it can really make a difference just in one conversation.
Absolutely. And the remote nature of most hearings can also make it easy for folks to understand what they would be getting themselves into. So every courtroom at the court that is operating in a hybrid capacity is available for folks to attend and observe, save certain exceptions related to the confidentiality of minors. So for example, in my courtroom, any day, anybody can log in and observe. And so really, if you don't want to have to talk to the courtroom clerk, you can just change your name to observer. And if you want to talk to the courtroom clerk, you just tell them that you're observing. If you don't want to be seen, you don't have to turn on your video. We're a public court, and unless there are specific privacy concerns, you are welcome to observe. And you can always get the login information for any particular courtroom. I believe it's posted and updated every day online to make sure that everyone has access.
Judge McLean, someone is asking which courts are hybrid currently.
Okay, so this functions on a day-by-day basis depending upon the case. And so, for example, if I'm in a trial, I mean, a lot of us are just hybrid. Like, I'll turn on the video, the WebEx every day, no matter what. But if I have a trial, it's going to be in person. It may not be hybrid. But short of that, everything's really, hybrid. So you've got your domestic relations calendars. Those judges are on the bench probably 6 to 7 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week. And they're going to be hybrid all of the time, unless they've closed the courtroom related to the privacy of a child. So if you're looking, but this is yet another reason you could reach out to Jodi and I. If you're looking to observe a certain type of hearing, or someone that you're trying to recruit to volunteer for DC Refers is looking to observe a certain type of hearing, reach out to us. We can find a courtroom that's going to be hybrid and provide some options. It does take a little research if you're looking for something specific, but we're happy to help with that.
Yeah, and in all of the courts divisions, with the exception of criminal, I think there is some aspect of hybrid, even if it's not every type of hearing or trials, but there's certainly motions hearings and initial hearings that are happening in hybrid form in all of the courts. And we should probably clarify that even if the court is operating hybrid, the litigants are able to come physically to the court if they choose to do so. That is an option as well. Serena Perot said it's so important to simplify the forms advice on the DC Courts website. We agree, Serena, and that is something that Claire and I are working on. And I think, Claire, I don't know, is there anything else we could say about the future of the court's website?
Yes, thank you for.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but you know the best.
It's okay. Thank you for your interest. I know there's a tremendous amount of interest in the DC Courts website. We're starting to engage in the redesign. We expect to have a new website 2024, mid 2024, and we definitely have the simplification of forms, describing processes, and all that in mind, and we're actually in the focus group stage. And I'm not sure, I don't think anybody on this call is participating in that, but we have taken advice from outside stakeholders. We're interviewing some of them. We had thrown out a survey and we've gathered names from that. I will say that if anybody here is interested in doing some user testing that we will start doing in the fall, I guess I'll put my email in the chat as well. If you're interested in that process at all, we're happy to take anyone who has interest in web design or has lots of opinions on the website, and we could definitely use you for that. And I don't even like to use the word use you, but definitely could use your feedback. So that's where we are on the website. And I know how important it is for access to justice.
And with respect to the forms, we appreciate that many of the forms need to be modified. Many of the forms are not created by the court, but are created with the assistance of the DC Bar and other organizations. And so it is something that we're constantly looking toward, in particular, making them as user-friendly as possible, removing a lot of the legal ease. Because again, the court is no longer just accessed by lawyers, it's predominantly accessed by people who don't have a law degree. And so taking out some of those big words and making it easier. But that is updating these forms is a constant process. But I appreciate that feedback, and please know that we are working on it. Well, I think that it is, I believe, 5:15, and we want to be respectful of your time.
Yeah.
So thank you on behalf of the DC courts for being a part of DC Refers, or being interested in DC Refers, or recruiting others to DC Refers, in whatever capacity you're currently serving or thinking about in the future. It is such a wonderful, wonderful service to the community and the court. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks both of you for being here and for everything you're doing at the court. It's such important work. And that was a great story to share to kind of remind us all. Thanks very much. Anything else, Nancy? All right, well, goodbye, everybody. Thank you for showing up, and we will see you all again next time for the next Reconnect.